it's kind of integral to our understanding this very debated issue that we're going to get into in just a minute. Anybody remember this? I'll throw a Latin phrase out at you. Nero redivivus. What was that? Nero redivivus. Well, it could certainly tie into that. Yeah. You remember we talked about there was a theory that was running through the Christian community here in this first century, toward the end of the first century, that the current emperor, and we're convinced it was whom? The current emperor in AD 95. Starts with a D. Domitian was a former emperor that had come about, named whom? Nero. Remember we talked about the real great persecutions of the Christians started under Nero. He didn't last very long. But now this widespread worse persecution is going on under Domitian. And a lot of people say, Nero's come back to life. There was this general fear that this emperor, as bad as he is reincarnated Nero. And so when he says he was and is not and is about to come out of the abyss always represented what? Evil. Very good. Source of evil. Pardon me. And go to destruction. And those who dwell on the earth whose name has not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world will wonder when they saw the beast that he was and is not and will come. So again, this idea, now he is not validating this concept whatsoever. He's just saying, you know how some of you think that this evil, it went away and that's come back? But if you look at that last phrase right there, what happened to the evil Nero and what's going to happen to Domitian? They go to what? Destruction. I don't know about you, but I get kind of frustrated sometimes when I see the evil that apparently is running rampant. But he's saying here, it's not. And someday, what's going to happen to it? Justice. I like the way Carlin put it. Justice. And think about what I said just a moment ago. In the 1940s, that's before my time, but some of you remember, how was Adolf Hitler pictured? Now I'm a historian, and I can tell you from my studies and from interviews with people, he's going to conquer the world. Where's Adolf Hitler today? He's been gone since 1945. And as bad as Adolf Hitler was, Joseph Stalin was just as bad or worse and seemed to be a bigger threat to the United States in the 1950s. Where's Joseph Stalin? He's gone. He's gone. And Leonid Brezhnev, that's what I grew up with. He's gone. And someday, Red China is going to be gone, and someday Russia is going to be gone, and all the evil associated with it. We know there's a lot of people there that are not evil. But the message, again, we don't want to lose the forest for the trees. God says, I will take care of evil. You be faithful, and if you're faithful even unto death, what happens? You get a crown of righteousness. You win for all eternity. And if you think about it, all these sources of evil that are gone, and all these sources of evil that exist today are going to be gone. But God and His people, just like we've seen all the way through Revelation, are going to continue. Now he goes on, and this is fascinating to me, and this is where it gets a little bit iffy sometimes for some people, but still don't lose sight of the overall story. And they are 7 kings, which we feel are confident are the Roman emperors. 5 have fallen. 1 is, the other has not yet come, and when he comes, he must remain a little while. The beast which was and is not is himself also an 8th, and is one of the 7, and he goes to destruction. Now I want to share with you. This is where, even like I say, the scholars that I feel like have a really good handle on this, they disagree just a little bit. And in order to see this, let me share a little bit of Roman history with you. The Romans were really, really big on numerology. We've talked about that before. What is that? Right. They take somebody's name, and anything number-wise was very, very important. And they religiously numbered their emperors, their Caesars, as we called them. And they had a number for every Caesar, and all they had to mention was the number so people know which Caesar they were talking about. We're kind of the same way. You know, if I ask you to name president number 1, who is that? Washington. How about number 16? Lincoln. Very good. How about 47? Trump. You see? I mean, you mention these numbers, and it rings a bell. It rings a bell. Same thing with these Romans. Now, I'm just going to cheat right here. I'm just going to read directly from my notes. Now, these notes are antiquated. This is fall of 1976, okay? And if you could see this notebook, you'd believe it. It looks like it's tattered, and I just have written down Dr. Fair's notes here. So I'm just going to read them verbatim. I usually don't like to do that, but I can't improve on what Dr. Fair said. He said the 7 kings refers to the emperors of Rome, and then he has some number here, just like the Roman historians did. He's gone back and he researched these Roman historians. Number 1 was Augustus. Y'all have heard of Caesar Augustus. He started the great empire. Number 2 was Tiberius, again, a very powerful Roman that did a lot of extension in the Roman Empire. Number 3 was Gaius. Most of us probably recognize the other name, Caligula. When I say Caligula, what does that tell? Evil, evil, evil. Number 3 was Claudius, and number 5 was Nero. Okay, 1 was Augustus, 2 was Tiberius, 3 was Gaius, or Caligula, 4 is Claudius, and 5 is Nero. Then 3 of these, the next 3 emperors, the Roman historians call pretenders. And the reason is the 3 together didn't even serve 2 years. And so a lot of Roman historians don't number them because they played such an insignificant role. And those, if you're interested in their names, were Galba, Otho, and Vitellius. And like I say, they only served 2 years, and so they're really not counted by most Roman historians. And then number 6 was Vespasian. Number 7 was Titus. And number 8 was Domitian. Now, those names are really, for our purpose right here and for understanding this verse, that's kind of important to have all those names down intact. The scripture says that 5 are gone, 1 is, and so if you get the 6th, who do we say the 6th one was? Vespasian. And 1 is only for a little while. Titus ruled only a little bit less than 2 years himself. And then he goes, and number 8 is 1 of the 7. Is 1 of the 7. Now, we have a little bit of problem that we've discussed since the beginning. There seems to be very little, I mean, there's always been some debate, and part of it comes from right here. There was a first century Christian historian named Irenaeus. You may have heard of Irenaeus. Irenaeus said categorically that Domitian was the emperor. It was toward the end of Domitian's reign when John was on the Isle of Patmos, when the revelation was revealed to the church. But here, if you take this literally, what he has written down here, it seems that, well, instead of Domitian's rule, there would be Vespasian's rule. And a lot of people really, really have a lot of problem with that. Because like I say, up until about the 4th century, nobody questioned Irenaeus because he lived in it. He was right there. And Caird and Roberts and Morris and Fair, they all somewhat have a different viewpoint on this. They all agree that the numbers represent Roman emperors. They all agree, that Irenaeus was a very, very sound historian, but there's a little bit of discussion about that. So I want to just continue reading from Dr. Fair's notes. Fair believes that John is not giving us a literal time frame. Why? All the way through Revelation, we don't see these literal meanings in this symbolism. So why would he start right now? Saying, giving us a literal time frame, but it's saying the symbolic 8th emperor, Domitian, is a cumulative effect of all the evil emperors before him. He tells that the present emperor, Domitian, is horribly evil, but don't worry, he will also go to his ruin just like all before him. In other words, it's not literal, but showing Domitian is the reincarnated symbol of all the evil before him. Everyone knew that Nero was number 5, so his reference was well taken. It says Domitian was even more evil than Nero. Did you hear that last verse that I read just a second ago? Okay, I'm going to read it once again. The beast which was and is not is himself an 8th and is one of the 7, and he goes to destruction. Again, a reference to what? That misconception, Latin phrase, Nero redivivus. It's not going to matter. He's very evil. He's persecuting people terribly. But you know what? Same thing's going to happen to him that happened to all the emperors before him. It happened to all. Any questions or comments? The only reason I even bring that up, I started to skip right over it because, again, there are people that get so up on that one concept that they miss the point. And the point being what? Evil's going to be destroyed. And God's people are going to survive. And that's the whole point that he wants to make here. Any comments? Are you totally confused? Carlin, you look out there and you look at, and you have all the deer in the headlights. Looks like, what is he talking about? Well, if you have any more questions, we can talk about next week too. Then he goes on the 10 horns. Now this is power. I love this. The 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have not received a kingdom, but have received authority as kings with the beast for 1 hour. You remember just a few minutes ago we talked about that all of these vassal states that the Romans had conquered, the Romans said what to all these people? Exactly. You can keep your kings, you can keep your governors, you can keep all your traditions, all your festivals and so forth, but you just fall in these big, broad parameters that we have, and if you don't, then you're going to pay the price. And if you'll notice there, these 10 kings are representative of these countries that they've conquered that have basically agreed, have given up their autonomy to keep particularly these kings, to keep their position. And if you'll notice there, it says that they were there for 1 hour. Well, that didn't sound like very long. What? They only had 1 hour of power? What do you think this vision is saying? A very, very, very short period of time. Who were the kings in Israel when this was going on? What was the collective dynasty called? Who was king when Jesus was born? Herod the Great. And then after he's gone, his son Herod Antipas comes along. And then after he's gone, his son Herod Agrippa the First comes along. And then after he's gone, Herod Agrippa the Second comes along. And they had no real authority. They did exactly, that's how they stayed in power. They did exactly what the Romans told them to do. And so we see the same thing. These have one purpose. I love that. One purpose. What do you think the one purpose was? Reminds me a whole lot of some of our U.S. congressmen. The one purpose is to stay in power. Doesn't matter what we have to promise people or what we have to do, stay in power. And that's cynical. And Dean's not here. She's teaching class. I'd get that evil look. Leave politics alone. But I couldn't help but when I was studying this week, thinking that the same. They have one purpose, and they give their power and authority to the beast. We see this. We still see it. And we still see that's much of why evil is still permeated today, because people doing their one purpose, take care of me. Doesn't matter whether it's right or whether it's wrong or whether it's godly or whether it's ungodly. Do what I need to do to stay in power. Whether it's economic or political or social or whatever, do what I have to do to stay in power. Well, we're out of time because we've got the clock adjusted, and I double-checked to make sure it is right. We'll stop there. We'll pick up with verse 14 next week, and just kind of probably needs to spend some time going back and making sure that we have a concise handle on chapter 17. So I thank you very, very much. I apologize for rushing so fast, but I wanted to try to get through that as quickly as we could. So if you have any questions, if you study on your own and want to ask them next week, feel free to do so. Thank y'all. Appreciate you being